This is, of course, dedicated to every woman in my life. That means all of you. And strangely also to a professor, and I hope I get his name right. I think it's Mark Kimmel. And he has a great YouTube about gender equality that is funny and informative, and I think you should watch it. And it's interesting because I really wanted to be here early today. This is such an important topic. It's an important topic to me. It's an important topic to our world. And it's a very important topic in our country right now. What it means to be a woman, how we embrace, treat, recognize, and understand the feminine, the divine feminine. And a term came to me recently that I think really begins this conversation appropriately. And it's why I couldn't be more grateful that so many of us were so late. How many people were frustrated by traffic today? Anyone? No, really. I mean, some of us that came from the north, it felt like it was going to be impossible. And I thought, how perfect this is. You know why? It's a very simple expression that I'd like you to remember. Privilege is invisible to those who have it. I didn't make that up. But you need to think about that, please. Privilege is invisible to those who have it. It first came to me when I was listening to this presentation by this man about women. And he talked about the experience of being in a group with women talking about gender equality, and how one of the women in the group said, well, we all start off the day the same. We all have to look in the mirror and say, who am I? I see a woman. And someone else in the group said, well, no, that's not quite true. We don't all start the day the same. And she said, because when I look in the mirror, I see a black woman. You don't see a white woman. You just see a woman. Because it's a privilege to be a white woman. So you don't have to think about it. Everyone's okay with it. No one stops you because of it. No one judges you because of it. Okay, it might happen sometimes, but so rarely that it probably doesn't define your life. But for a black woman, there's a difference because of a lack of privilege. Now, it might seem like a stretch, but I travel freely every Sunday to get here. No roadblocks, no barriers, no redirections, and everything goes as planned, the way I want it. But what if that was my life? I mean, what if that was the story of my life? That when I speak, roadblock. Maybe not an obvious roadblock, but a subconscious roadblock. Because I'm a woman. Let's see what the man has to say about it. You ever been in a meeting where even the most accomplished, established, and educated woman will find her opinion treated as less than the man who just showed up, doesn't know the topic, doesn't understand what's going on, but his opinion is equal or greater? Have you ever even been guilty of feeling that unconsciously? It's a roadblock. Now, there's a lot of things about women in society we could talk about, and I'm not going to. The fact that probably, based on research in Canada and the United States alone, probably every single woman in this room has experienced some form of sexual aggression, whether it was explicit judgment based on an evaluation of how someone felt you looked. And they made a point of letting you know that you either fulfilled their dreams or did not. Do you know how often that happens to me? Never. But most women at some moment in their life have been made to feel beautiful by a stranger or unwanted by a stranger. And why is that any of their business? Most of the women in here have been made to feel more by a stranger based on their femininity, or less based on their femininity by a stranger. Not by the content of their character, not by the value of their work, not by the inherent dignity of their being as a human, but because they were a girl or a woman, because of their body parts, because of what society says about their sexuality, and we're not going to talk about that. And we're not going to talk about the fact that statistically, at least half the women here have experienced some form of physical sexual aggression, and at least a third sexual abuse in the most extreme forms, and very often by people who they trusted or were told to trust and care about. We're not going to talk about those things. Why? Because sadly, they are just expressions of something much bigger, much more horrific, and much less visible. Which is that over time, slowly, bit by bit, generation by generation, faith by faith, we have been taught first to be ashamed of the divine feminine, and then, in many cases, to forget it altogether. Because the problem that we face relating to the treatment of women in our culture is just an extension of a great pain that every one of us bears. Because it is about the treatment of the feminine. And that is something that we all possess. And there is no great awakening without it. There's no spirit, there's no God, there's no peace on earth until the divine masculine and the divine feminine are held together. One of the most extraordinary things about where we are today is that this was born of a small group of conscious women who said that our place in the church, our place in society, our place in theology is not right. Something is out of balance. God is everywhere. God is everything. God is every one of us, and not more the men, and not less the women, and not more the women, and not less the men. That God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one power, one mind. Not more if you're a boy. Not better if you're a man. But equally in all beings. And in this process in which our society has lost this respect and this consciousness, we have all lost a part of ourselves. We have all lost not only an avenue to the divine, but we have lost a part of the divine. When we hear readings, when we look back in time, and we rediscover the divine feminine, the myth, the archetype, the words, the songs, there is a part of ourselves, a part of every one of us that is being reawakened, reignited, reimagined, the part that is embodied, the part that is sensual, the part that is okay with mystery, the part that knows that life is relationship, and that me is an illusion that we all exist as we. There will be no future for this planet if we do not reclaim and integrate the voice of the divine feminine. And make no mistake, while that is a mythic, metaphysical concept, it begins in your homes, and it begins on the street, and it begins with your dialogue. It begins with the way you, and when I say you, I don't mean just men, I mean men and women. The way you treat one another, and the way you value and respect the women and the girls in your life. For if you do not know how to ask permission, show gratitude, take leadership from, then you are diminishing a part of yourself. Each time, each word, each assumption. And so, there's a lot that could be said, but I think it's clear that really the topic of the treatment, the value of girls and women in society and the world is really about the future of humanity. It's about peace, and it is about awakening. For masculine and feminine live together in each of us. And one cannot thrive or exist without the other. So, there's something I wanted to do to close these thoughts. And I know it's a heavy topic. I like to make a lot of jokes, but what can I say? You know, an anthropologist, unfortunately I forgot the name, she said, did you know, or she wrote, she said, it's fascinating, you know, women are one of the few specifically targeted subjects of oppression that live in constant close proximity to their oppressor. It's heavy stuff. But our community is about looking at the topics of our world and our lives directly to make that which is spiritual and etherical real, practical. And so each one of you has to take this where you need to take this, whether it's evaluating your behaviors or your assumptions or making changes in your workplace or just changing the way you hear news items or stories in your neighborhood or your community. It's just about being open and remembering that privilege is invisible to those who have it. So here's how I wanted to end, but it's a little bit intense. Can you handle something a little bit intense? I'm asking you. It's been a weird day anyway, right? So interestingly, there are almost always more women in places of consciousness, healing, and peace than men. I don't know why, but look around. That's the way it is. And so I would like to invite the gentlemen, if you choose, to join me. And I'm going to let you know what you're joining me in. You can see if you like. While it's true we have to be careful that we don't, pick sides, make men bad and women good, and not recognize that guys have a hard time too, and all those ridiculous things. That's not the point. Of Of course men have challenges. Of course people of all backgrounds have challenges. But this is our moment to acknowledge a specific wound that is healing in our society. So what I would like to do is I would like to take a moment simply to apologize to the women in the room. And if the gentleman would like to join me, then you're welcome to stand. And you can turn and face the community. You don't have to say anything. You can close your eyes. You can say a prayer in your heart. I would like to say to Divine Mother that lives within each of us, we look to the women of this world and we ask forgiveness for what we ourselves as men have done and said and thought and participated in. And on behalf of those men who will never ask for forgiveness or see things differently or treat women fairly, for whatever has been taken from you, broken in you, not seen in you, know that there is an incredible love in this universe greater than anything that you've experienced. And we as men are here to share that with you and to see that in you and to honor that in each other. And may we learn from you and your experience so that we can go forward together, all of us as human beings, expressions of spirit on earth, each unique, beautiful, powerful, regardless of our gender, our sex, our religion, our skin color, or where we come from. And finally, we thank you for walking a road that perhaps few of us could imagine or endure with such grace and dignity and power. Amen.